And welcome to a special edition of Space Oddities, where we're going to go ahead and go over some very important topics to me personally and to all the gentlemen that I'm going to bring on tonight. I got some ex-shipmates and some new friends, all vets, except for, of course, my elusive co-host, Ben, which I'll go ahead and bring Ben up here. Hey, how's it going, Ben? So it's Veterans Day. You get your 3 day weekend and you get to party this weekend. But more importantly, it's to celebrate vets and the things that they've done for this country and for you. And we'll go ahead and adjust this. And we're going to go ahead and start bringing on some of these guys. First person doesn't need any introduction. I think most people that are watching my podcast will know him, and it's Mr. Sean Cahill. He served with me on the USS Princeton, amongst many other things. I'm pretty sure you're retired. Is that correct, Mr. Cahill?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So he served all over the place. And then, of course, another person that needs no introduction, Mr. P.J. Hughes of the USS Nimitz from the Nimitz encounter. And obviously, all of us are technically from the Nimitz encounter. But and then we have Mr. Dawson Brothers. He's a new friend of mine. And fresh out of the Marine Corps, did 3 years, and then broke his brain, so he had to get out. Figured that's that's how it goes sometimes. But yeah, we're all here tonight to discuss the importance of Veterans Day, the importance of understanding veterans a little bit better, and there's a couple of topics that are talked about but not talked about enough. And one of those things is PTSD, what I think they call post-traumatic stress disorder, a thing called TBI, which is traumatic brain injury, and of course the end of all those things ends up being veteran suicide. There's a thing going around now, 22 a day, and it's sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but it averages out to be 22 vets a day take their lives. And the two topics prior to that are two of the main reasons for veterans to commit suicide, usually through their PTSD, through just the shared experiences going awry, and then just not being able to deal with civilian life. And it gets a little rough for a lot of people. So that's what we're here today to talk about. And Sean, I'm sure you've got your plenty of stories. So I'd like to start with you. What do you have you been diagnosed with PTSD or had to deal with any type of PTSD from your time in the service?
Yeah, I have 90% disability with the Veterans Administration in general, and about I think 40% of that is PTSD. The great remainder is spinal stenosis and bad knees and things like that. But I have to say that about 3 years before I retired, right before I had my first heart attack, I did something that I thought was going to end my career. And that was I went to the senior medical officer on board the USS Macon Island, and I told him that I was suffering from anxiety and stress, depression, and that I didn't know what to do when I took off my uniform when I was at home, and I didn't know who I was losing a piece of me to this service, amongst other things. And I really thought that was going to end my career as a master at arms, because if you go on anti-anxiety meds, you can't carry a weapon, at least in the United States Navy. At the time, we had combat troops in the Army and Marine Corps that were, or actually not the Marine Corps, but the Army, that were being handed pills to constantly to fix their problems, and then going into combat. But we were getting a different level of service in the Navy. I was lucky enough to find something called buspirol. I didn't find it; the doctor did. That the one thing that could help me and my symptoms, but that would allow me to still carry a weapon that didn't have the same problems that SSRIs and other things like that had. But to be honest with you, that led that didn't make anything better, because right after that I had a heart attack, and that became my focus. And I really didn't think about these other things as much. I was thinking about heart health. At the time, I didn't realize how much everything ties in together. I was not a meditator of any kind at the time. I didn't do any real introspection other than overthinking. And I didn't understand that I was creating so many of these problems myself by the narratives that I had in my head. And obviously we can go into the psychology of it, but there was help to be had. But the first psychiatrist that I saw on active duty, I thought he was just an absolute jerk. And it's not somebody that I wanted to tell my problems to. And so I didn't continue. And then when I retired, to be honest with you, my psyche fell apart within the first year and a half of being retired. And I always say that leaving the military, whether voluntarily or involuntary, is like getting kicked out by an abusive parent. Um, you knew you needed them somehow, and you kind of loved them, and you wanted them to love you, but now they said we don't need you anymore, and you can go. And your body doesn't understand. Your brain might, but the younger person in you, the wounded person, and we'll talk about that later, they don't understand. And suddenly you don't have a family anymore, and you're a little lost. So that was a lot of what it was like for me. I know that a lot of people have different flavors from combat experience, from traumatic events. And listen, all of us who have served, we have a bucket full of traumatic events that we use as comedy most of the time. We don't even acknowledge that they're traumatic events.
Yeah, that's the whole vets have dark humor.
Yeah, because that was just a normal Tuesday. So
Yeah.
I don't begrudge anyone for any length of service, for any role in combat or not, for having been deeply affected by not only by the camaraderie, but by the negative reinforcement of discipline that comes with it to teach us the skills that we needed to know to go into those places.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I mean, it's there's a lot of different aspects to it too, especially some of the things you said, like where they're really ringing true, like how you felt, like it's almost like your emotional switch was just turned off, and
Yeah.
trying to make those interpersonal relationships work when you just don't have an emotional range to even respond to them. Yeah, that was a really, really hard thing. And learning how to turn that switch back on, not being, and to be able to actually care enough to interact and go the and I think it's like as simple as talking about like a conversation with my wife. It's like prior to going and getting some help, it would just be a pretty one-sided conversation where she says something to me and I'm like, okay, that's it. Where now, even though sometimes it's still that, but at least now this time I know enough to say, okay, well, that's interesting. And then try to get involved with the conversation, being present in the conversation and not just think about the 10 different ways you can fix that problem.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about you, but I also, after retiring in the years that followed, and like many of us at this point, have received a diagnosis that I was on the autism spectrum, and got my IQ tested, and all of a sudden my life made sense. And then that was another journey into accepting that the treatment that you got, even though it wasn't, and I don't even mean necessarily in the military, but all over the place, the way that you were treated by certain people and the way you learned to treat others was based on some factors that weren't wholly your fault. And you can, and it's not to write something off and put the onus on someone else, but it's to say, you know what, I don't have to beat myself up as much as I always did. Okay, I'm a weirdo. People thought I was a weirdo. Okay, they were right per capita compared to everybody else. They weren't wrong. But I'm not mad about it anymore. And I'm not mad at them for the way they treated me. But that's a whole journey. But the military pulls so many of us in that are in that same spot, that have neurodivergency, ADHD, autism spectrum. And all of a sudden we're handed a uniform and a gun and we fit in. Yeah, I'll stick around. I'll figure out how to make this work.
That, and the other thing is the lack of importance. And what I mean by importance is, okay, so when I was I ran $1 billion weapon system, the most advanced one on the planet, and I mean, at a certain point, I was the only technician in my work center. So if that didn't work, it was because of me, or if it did work, it was because of me. So here I am as an E4 with a tremendously important position on a ship. I may not be running the actual ship, but the entire ship built around its capability to fight. And 90% of its fighting capability has to do with whether my systems work. That's a level of importance that becomes moot when you get out and you're working for some fat middle-aged guy that wants to tell you that you're late 2 minutes to your shift, or you didn't put in your TPS report 3 times, and you're just looking at him and you're just like, I could end you in like half a second. I could just literally just. And
Well,
the
it's
anger. The
not unlike
anger.
being on a pirate ship too, because
Yeah.
that someone, usually wearing an anchor on their collar, is standing over you going, "Hey, if you can't get it done, we'll find someone else." But you know how that's not going to work. If they find someone else, I'm in trouble. You know what I mean? I'm not the tech anymore. I mean, I was a one-man department.
For a long time, all I had was Master Chief Kirby. That's it.
Yeah.
It was me and him. And I'm sorry, but if you got a Master Chief as a chief, you don't have a chief. You got a guy that's drinking coffee and asking you what are we doing today?
Yeah. He initiated me, and I love him to death. But yeah, he was not going to get up from that desk to oversee a task or to check up on the
no. If it wasn't
the sailor,
luckily I was on top of what I was doing because I kind of had to be, But that level of importance when you get out and you just don't have it anymore. Nobody cares. Nobody, and then then the level of anger just dealing with civilians, and it's just people don't understand how irrational the level of anger you have towards your fellow civilians when you work with them, because you just got done working for years with people that are just going to get the job done no matter what, mission first. And then you hear these guys crying about, I don't know, whatever it is. You just pick a thing and they're crying about it, and you're like, are you kidding me? I'm just sitting in a desert eating everything with fucking 4 pounds of sand in it. You're done. Get out of here.
But let's remember that we had to get jumped into a gang. Okay, that's what boot camp is. Just get in here. We're gonna do a proper initiation. We're gonna shave your head. We're gonna induce trauma. We're gonna put you into a group. We're gonna break you down. We're gonna build you up in our image, and then we're gonna tell you who you are. Yeah. And I know I'm giving it a negative slant, but we're talking about the after effects of that training. Yeah, we can fight a war that way, and we make a damn good team. We can drink good, but
they want soldiers. They want people that can follow orders. So they break you down to the type of person that can follow an order.
But remember, everybody else out here had the choice the whole time of going, F this, man. I don't want to do this anymore. And we didn't.
The veins in my head when a civilian will say, but what about, my whatever? And it's like, I don't give a I don't have to be nice to you. Get it done, asshole. And then you get in trouble for calling him an asshole.
Well,
there's a swear for you there, Ben.
I think we could have really used it. I think all of us would be a little better off. We had a little more of that in the military and a little more of the military in the workplace. Like if we could somehow blend them into not taking things so serious over here and taking things a little more serious. I understand.
Yeah.
But I think it's a testament to what we went through, that we can't walk back out and get on the team again right away.
No, you definitely can't. I mean, and just like you, I got diagnosed. I got 70% for PTSD, and I just actually pushed it up to 100%.
Wow.
Apparently, I'm a little rough around the edges. And I mean, both of us have been together. And remember Catalina?
Oh yeah,
yeah. So,
well, you remember me when I was in uniform and I was the sheriff.
I avoided you like the fucking plague.
I was the plague because that was my job. My job was to find, the little viruses running around the ship. But
I can't say I wasn't from time to time.
I was a screamer, and that was horrible for my psyche and horrible for my heart and for my ego to think that I could get away with providing that level of intimidation to another human being and think I was going to get some positive result out of it. Yeah. But I did it over and over again.
Matter of fact, I actually broke the law when I was in, and this poor son of a bitch had to bring me in when I turned myself in.
You were always one of the good guys. You know what I mean? You were one of the guys that it was like, we are going to go extra hard on him when he comes in here. We already knew what was going to happen, and then we're going to help you get back on the feet. Yeah, well, yeah, you broke the covenant or the rule, the covenant in the Navy of going against the team briefly. You know what I mean, and you made your chief look stupid, And that
I think I made the entire chain of command look stupid at that point, and that was also my blessing and my curse.
But you weren't the guy who got the DUI and then had his passenger get the DUI the following week,
No,
right?
no,
No,
no. I
that
was, I,
okay,
I
no,
was, I wasn't dumb. I was smart about everything I did, which is why I didn't get court-martialed.
yeah, that I'll never forget that whole bit. And then that
Yeah.
guy pretended to pass out at Captain's Mast and pretend to be sorry.
We've seen some characters, but
yeah.
we've dominated the conversation. I'm gonna go ahead and move down here to PJ. He's another gentleman from the Nimitz encounter. He was fortunately for him, he was over there on the Nimitz, which is basically a floating city of just nightmares and stress. So I'm gonna go ahead and hand it off to you, PJ. What's been your experience with like getting out of the service, dealing with PTSD? Are you rated? Are you not? What's your story?
I am rated. I am actually 100% TDIU right now because they determined I don't like people and I'm not safe to go to work.
Hey,
I'm attempting to
company.
go to college, which is not working out any better because I hate those people too. But much of my reflection is actually from hindsight. I know what my triggering events are. I know what happened. I know what caused my head to break. I can trace it down to like the minute. But I can also trace it to the fact that I found a way to avoid it for, I don't know, almost 7 years. I kept myself super busy for straight up 7 years. And then I just crashed. I couldn't avoid it anymore. But I don't share it very much, but the reason I actually got out of the Navy when I did is because I lost a friend in a plane crash. One of our Hawkeyes crashed. I was dead set that it was my fault for a very, very long time because of the system that caused the plane to crash, who had worked on the airplane last, and who was the inspector on the airplane last. Everything pointed to if I made the mistake, it was all my fault. And I was like dead set on that. And one of the people in the plane was a lieutenant who I'd been friends with since he was a student flight officer. So I'd known him for, 7 years at that point. I drank with the man. I hung out with the man. I had a lot more fun with the guy than I probably ever should have, considering I was enlisted and he was an officer. But, what goes on debt stays on debt. So we'll leave it at that. But I had transferred shortly before I left the Navy to another squadron who had just lost a plane in the Arabian Sea, just lost one of their flight officers. So I showed up right after all this happened, and as a first class who was not there when everything happened, they dumped everything in my lap, and it just broke me. I held it together for the remainder of the deployment, but having to handle all the wreckage, having to handle all the stuff that came with the accident investigation, just broke me. I got back off that deployment and I was done. I looked for a way to get out. I found a way to get out. A very thoughtful master chief that I worked for at the time kind of knew what was going on with me, but I don't even think he had half a clue. But he arranged a very nice job with Northrop Grumman right after I got out, basically doing the same exact thing. So I went from being in the Navy to being on the road for 3 years straight. Kept myself busy, just kept myself going. But ultimately, I'm just as broken as everybody else. I'm just as normal as everybody else. I have to highlight the mention of the spectrum diagnosis. Even with all the therapy and everything I've been doing with PTSD for, I don't know, however many years it is now. I think 2015 or so is when I first got dragged to the VA. That was the last thoughtful thing my ex-wife did for me. She basically dragged me to the VA and dropped me off at their doorstep and wouldn't let me leave till I asked for help. So, I'm always grateful to her for that one. But there was always a missing piece, and it turned out it was ADHD. Once they got me on ADHD meds, which I actually just switched meds because the other ones don't work as well. more of my healing, so much more of everything I was going through just started falling into place. And it was actually amazing that little part was such a big part with why I was just stagnant with my healing.
Oh no, it's a really big part, because like I got the same diagnosis with ADHD, and until I started getting treated for it, I wasn't leveled out at all. It's like there was so much going inside my head that I couldn't focus on anything. I couldn't really, wasn't very competent with any situation that I mean, I could force myself if I absolutely had to, but it didn't really, it was only short periods of time. I couldn't go an entire day and just focus on a topic or a subject or something like that. So it definitely limited my capability for dealing with people, dealing with work environments, things of that nature. And it's just, I know with me, I know there's two events that kind of triggered me. And then of course there's, too many to count for just about every vet. That's always just a paradigm of shifting things that just,
it's always that big one.
Mm-hmm.
And my therapist explained it to me one time, and I hate therapists because it takes me forever to find one I trust. But one of the ones I liked finally had broken it down. She was like, over your, I don't know, just shy of 11 years in the Navy, she listed stuff we had talked about that basically like just kept cracking the armor I wore. And she had a list of like 20 different things that she felt were significant and it just like cracked the armor. And then it took that one event that just shattered it. And when she explained it that way, it was, I don't know, made a lot more sense than I thought it would.
And then there's also the after effect of things you do that will always like echo the things that went on. Like, our ship, the USS Princeton, we were involved in Iraqi freedom and enduring freedom. And as we were, basically bombing Afghanistan back into the Stone Age as a, young 20-something, we're all high-fiving each other. Hey, more insurgents killed, more people dead. We're winning for us. And then, then your buddy, 10 years later shoots you a link to some type of movie or some type of documentary, and it's just showing all these places that were hit by the U.S. missiles. Then you see dead women and children because they had their whole families with them when we were hitting them. And it's like it's kind of like all of a sudden the echoes of all those ghosts start playing havoc with your soul, and you start feeling like there's this dark spot that you're never going to be saved for. I'm a devout, saved Christian at this point, and I truly believe that I am saved now, but it was a long road. I felt like I had a dark mark on my soul because I was involved in the murder of thousands of people, and that's how I saw it. And I had this whole game plan that when the rapture would happen and I wasn't going to be taken up, I was going to, load up with as much as I could and go help every Christian try to get to heaven as much as possible before the end time finished. That was my game plan because I felt like I was unredeemable. Mm-hmm. And it hurt. It hurt a lot. And luckily I did find some help. And it usually starts with like one friend or somebody that just doesn't give up on you and just says, look, man, you effed everything up, or you're not doing good. And for me, that was actually Jason Turner. He actually was supposed to be on with us tonight, and he must have fallen asleep or something. He's a good old boy. He kind of just does his own thing at this point.
I wish he had shown up. I haven't talked to him in a while.
Yeah, I talked to him today, and he's he's got a new girlfriend, so he's he's probably busy. And but he's the guy who told me, he goes, man, not for nothing, but you really need to go to this place. And when you go to this place, I want you to do everything they ask you to do to the nitty gritty, even if it sounds stupid, even if it seems silly, and it will help you. And that was a place called Home Base. It's a organization that's funded by the Red Sox and Mass General, and they come together to do an amazing inpatient 2-week treatment plan. If you're suffering from PTSD and you don't have the funds or the way to do it, you can contact these people, and I think as long as you have either a diagnosis of PTSD, TBI, or you were a combat vet, or there's qualifications for it, but they're very general. But they'll take you in and they'll just right to the nines, take care of everything, show you how to eat, how to work out, all the different aspects to good health. And I'll be honest, I haven't followed all of them, but they also give you a toolbox to interpersonal relationships and how to speak with people and how to interact with people on a better note, so that you don't sound like a gruff old vet a-hole.
That was an awesome program. We definitely have to talk about that some more after.
Yeah, it's in my link tree. If you go to either my website, or you go to my Twitter, I have a link tree, and home base is in there. I'll also put my link tree in the comments, and you can go a link to it. Me, Jason, and PJ all went to it and can say nothing but great things for it. I don't know if, Sean, you've ever even heard of it. I don't know how you got your help, but if you haven't been to it, I may suggest, frequenting the vacation of, and honestly, it's so refreshing to get this kind of help that you feel like a new person afterwards.
I'm fortunate enough to have found myself out of the woods, and in a place that it's not where I entered the woods. It's someplace better, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of us will ever be whole, especially given where we live and what we are, in my opinion. But I will say that for me, it came down. It's not simple. It's simply stated. But it came down to first understanding that my body was going off in one direction, when my mind was going off in another. And that when the two came together, they were really scared about what everybody else was doing and thinking. And I had to get to a point where I made peace with my body, where I started treating it better, where I understood how mine operated. Mine doesn't operate the same way everybody else's does. If I put a lot of pasta in me, it's not going to be a good day. I'm going to get inflamed. I'm going to turn into an a-hole. But at the end of the day, we all just think we had a bowl of spaghetti. And I'm not intolerant of anything. I just know that when I eat certain things and do certain things, I get inflamed, and then I usually that puts my body into fight or flight. And then my mind is so disconnected from my body that it's like I'm looking down going, oh God, what do we have to fix here? What's the problem? None of this is bothering me. Why is it bothering you? But it was nervous system regulation for me, introspection, and what we call Jungian shadow work. I really had to get to the bottom of what was making me angry. Why were differences of opinions or ideology so important to me? And some of it was autism, but some of it at the same time was the fact that I was a jerk, man. I wasn't going to let you be you. You had to be you through the lens that I wanted you to be. And, we can see that going on all over the place, because when scared people, hurt people, and scared people, try to take control of a situation and find some peace. And that ends up leading to chaos when we all got to live together. So, but there's so much to it, man. What that program what they're talking about offering, those fundamentals have to be at the start. You have to give a person a place to start fresh, clean, vibrant, with some self-care, and let them know, hey, you get to be you. You don't have to be anybody else. And I know it sounds silly, but it's true.
No, you're absolutely correct. And I think that's what's so amazing about this program, is because it doesn't matter where you're at. It shows you all the different aspects of your life that will affect the way you feel, think, and are, including everything from, your gut health to your mental health, but it goes through every aspect of your life, exercise, diet, the way that you interact with people, the way that you think, your perspective, just like you were just saying, through the lens of these people need to do what I want to do. And that's that. I had this OCD that, when you're talking about on a spectrum where things have to be done a very specific way for me. Otherwise, I'm not happy. And so I knew I could feel you right when you said that. I was like, yeah, that's point on. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to our last guest, and this gentleman, his name is Dawson Brothers. He's actually somebody that I've met recently. He's fresh out of the Marine Corps, and also struggling like a lot of people with his mental health. Dawson, feel free to share a little bit, share a lot. Just you're muted still. But I know it's all really new to you. So you don't have to share anything you don't want to. Just we're happy that you're here, bud, and just know that you're not alone.
Yeah, like 2-3 months fresh with the Marine Corps. Speak up a little bit more, get a little closer to that. There we go. Can you hear me? Better? No. I'll tell you what. Why don't you use my mic?
Yeah, he's sitting right next to me. So.
Well, my name's Dawson. I'm 2-3 months out the Marine Corps. Got out with a TBI. Struggling a lot recently. And I met Gary. Thankfully, he's helping me out, trying to get me set up with the VA. So, yeah.
Like
That's all I have, really. Sorry.
You don't How you doing? But you don't have to share anything you don't want to share, man. It's just I wanted you to come on so you could see that I don't care whether you've been filling vending machines or you spent 18 months in Iraq. Everybody's got their fight. Everybody's got the things that they're dealing with, and obviously some people are more stressed than others, but you never know what one person's how they're going to be affected by the same thing. So it's like, it's like I can go down tomorrow and somebody can pull a gun on me. I could shoot them in the face and then go home and sleep like a baby. But somebody else could go do that same thing, and it's going to be the most traumatic thing in their entire life. So when it comes to PTSD and dealing with this stuff, it's just important to know, A, you're not alone, and B, you don't have to worry about whether you're worse or you're better or your situations. A lot of guys will be like, well, it's not that bad because it's only this stuff that happened. Well, that's just not the case. That's just not how it works with our psychology.
Yeah.
So, but I appreciate you coming on and being with us. And is there anything else that you wanted to talk about or anything else that you wanted to share to get off your chest?
No, really, no.
That's
Thank you, though.
fine. You can go back and listen, just hang out, and just that's absolutely just fine. All right, but as you can see, it's like me, PJ, and Sean. We've been out for years, and it's much easier to talk when you get back. When you get over that hump and you start repairing yourself, it's much easier to talk about it than when you're just fresh. You don't really know. And I mean, like Dawson, he got TBI, which is traumatic brain injury, which affects your memory. It affects a lot of the things that you're dealing with daily. So that's that's really all I can say about it for now. But I mean, it's just important to remember that vets are dealing with a lot more in their heads than you'll ever know. You'll never know if we're actually happy or sad. You'll never know whether we're in a good mood or not, because we still, no matter how much we try to fix this, we're always mission first. And that's never going to change. Some tips: if you got a vet friend that can't get out of his head, ask him to do something. Tell him you need help with something. every decent vet will literally be like, okay, I got you. They won't let you down. They don't want to let you down. It's ingrained into them, you know. And as you can tell, some of us get a little emotional when we start talking about certain aspects of the PTSD, certain aspects of our life. You know, it's like, you know, most of us have had a failed marriage or really came really close to a failed marriage. You know, it's been a struggle all the way around. So now I want to turn it around. Now you've heard all the vets talk. Now we have Ben here. He's kind of as a representative of somebody that's never served, and he's listened to all of us. And Ben, I mean, what's been going through your mind as you've listened to us, and what kind of questions do you have as like a civilian?
Sure. So first of all, thank you all for your service and happy Veterans Day. And thank you for bringing me along in this conversation. So one thing that just was pretty stark, I think Sean said it, about you lose your community when you get out. And I think that is such an incredible observation, because I don't think a lot of people actually ever understand what community is. And that's where veterans have the benefit of knowing what it's like. So I didn't serve. I did 2 years with ROTC. So I know a little bit about what it's like. Been broken down, maybe not built up, but I understand the camaraderie.
He's also the comic relief this evening.
Always. So that observation that when you step out, when you separate, that you lose your community, that is something that's so critical. And for all people, and I don't think many people really even know it, especially folks outside of the military. And how do you deal with such a loss of that, and how do you find your purpose? I met a group of vets out in Hood River. They were doing something called Operation Pay It Forward, where it's by vets for vets. It was like 5 guys at the bar, and we all got talking, and they were on a fly fishing expedition. So it's vets enabling other vets to do outdoor hunting, fishing, all sorts of trips and stuff. And I thought that was such a beautiful opportunity and expression where vets, like you said, Gary, where tell a vet that you need help, and that will draw them out. Well, if you don't have purpose for yourself, make your purpose to serve, and the opportunities of volunteering, with religion, with wherever you can find and build your own community, because the military builds a community for you. It's not the healthiest community, but
that's the truth.
it's a real community, and the brotherhood and the friendships are real, and you can build that outside of the service. It's just not there for you. It's something that has to be built. So I guess I'm just sharing a little that, you know, if you feel alone, especially for the folks who are just separated, like Dawson, I feel for you. There are so many opportunities that unfortunately you have to step out and reach out and grab those opportunities. But once you do, they'll lift you up. And maybe by reaching out to other vets and helping or offering to help, that's how community can be built. So maybe just what have you guys found in terms of coming back and trying to find community? I've heard some folks hate people. You know, you don't want anything to do with people, which I can understand that. Sometimes I resemble that, but we need people. So what have you guys done when you came back to find your...
That's the difference between a vet and a civilian. We don't need people. I mean, we really don't. I mean, when it comes down to it, yes, in the technical sense, we do need people in our life, but we don't need a lot of them. The majority of them, we can literally do without. And we do build our own communities, but we don't realize we do it. Like I know I built UAPX with Kevin Day, and then I do a lot with my church now. I do a lot with my daughter. I volunteer at the school once a week. I'm basically since I became fully retired, I'm more busy trying to help other people and do other things for people than I am with have I ever been in my entire life. Sean, you wanted to say something? Go for it. I know.
Oh,
about needing people.
Well, I was only going to disagree with you on a lot of us in the military only need people when we need something done. And it's because I think we're afraid of the transactional relationship, that may ensue, or getting beholden to someone, or suddenly, owing them something. But I'm going to tell you, man, I'll go to the mats fighting you on this one. We all need people. And for me, it was 20 years of forgetting the people underneath this roof because of the mission. And even when I came home and there was no mission, finding a different mission to distract myself from the fact that I wasn't being a good dad. I wasn't being the husband and friend I wanted to my wife. And I'm not saying that we should all just suddenly just start beating ourselves over the head. But dude, we need people. We need community. We need to, but we convince ourselves we don't, because a lot of us remember waking up in the berthing and thinking that the 10 guys within 5 feet of me hate my freaking guts. They don't want to talk to me. I'm in the wrong. I'm not even sleeping over by my friends. You know what I mean? I got to go out to the chow hall. I got to go through all this crap just to eat, and then you're out on the smoke deck trying to look at a place that doesn't have another sailor. Is trying to find a piece of ocean and put your blinders on so you can be like, can I just not see a person for a moment? But I swear, bro, we miss those people. We do. We need them. And convincing ourselves that we don't. I'll fight you all day. Don't get me wrong. I know how it feels wanting to walk out and just smack every single person and tell them to get in line. Smack them all one at a time because none of it makes sense. But I'm just telling you, man, strive to find the love again. And it may be there for you.
Yeah, I will agree with that. I'll go ahead and retract what I was talking about. Go ahead, PJ.
I'm going to meet in the middle of you two, because I think that's somewhere where it actually lies. I don't like people except for my people.
That's true.
For the last year, up until I started college again, I was attending, the VA here has some fancy name for it, but it's basically a bunch of different groups. And I spent my days hanging out with other vets. I found more peace just hanging out with these other guys than I did with any of the multitude of civilians I've tried to be friends with. Don't get me wrong, I have civilian friends. Most of them existed before I left for the Navy, at this point, 24 years ago. They were already my friends. And I've made some new ones and some very good friends. But I find the common factor with the new friends I've made is that they're all just as broken as I am, just in a different way. So I think
life is rough. Yeah, I can agree with a little bit of that. I mean, for me, I'm coming from the aspect that I already had a loving family. I got very, very lucky with my, meeting my current wife. She literally would run to the end of the earth with me. She would live in a cardboard box on the street with me if that's all we had. I mean, it doesn't matter where I'm at, she wants to be there. And that's something that you can't shake a stick at that. That's just something you just don't find every day. And I have a beautiful little girl that just adores me and thinks I'm, everything there is in the world. She's 6 years old and it's all about daddy. And I'm blessed. So yeah, we do need people. So I completely retract what you're absolutely right, Sean. But you're also right, PJ, too, because but when you do finally become my people, it doesn't matter how shitty you get with me or whatever you do, you're always going to be my people.
You're stuck with me.
Yeah, that's it. It's like a bad rash. You're just never going to get rid of us. So that's that. See, you can see how contradictory we are. I mean, it takes three of us to really get one thought out.
I mean, you sound pretty human. That's
Yeah.
that's very human.
But this is also after a lot of a lot of introspection, a lot of help from the outside, a lot of having to figure things out, and years of dealing with it. And I think that's really the difference, and it's a matter of getting our fellow veterans to that point too.
And maybe getting our country to take care of our veterans.
That would be a pretty good start, but
That's a mission.
That's a tall
I think
order.
That's something that's been on the tip of my tongue since Dawson spoke up, because we've all had our medical issues, but I know the phone stops ringing. I know that you were given help, but if you couldn't be on time perfectly with every single thing they offered you, at some point they stopped calling. And there's not a lot of help and advocacy that continues. Like I won't say enraged, because I don't get enraged anymore, but it made me angry to hear that you're still needing to get set up with the VA, that your transition process, and that the medical pardon me, that I'm getting ticked. You should have been handheld until you, because dude, you paid the price. And yeah, everybody does, but you have the golden certificate going, I gave everything you could short of not being here anymore, and you should have a great deal more support, and that should be easy for you to get that support, and it should be almost like you got to chase them away with a stick,
Instead, it's a long drawn out process.
I'm sorry if you haven't received that, and I'm glad you know Gary, and now you know me and other folks, and not that I can move mountains or barely even dig a ditch anymore, but I'd be happy to help you, man.
Well, with the right meds, we can get it go about 2-3 hours. I'm good.
And meds are something that as someone who's had a lot of mental health challenges, be careful with the medication as looking at it as a solution. Anything can help. Anything can help, but
I think Gary was making a joke about that for the 4-hour pill that you should.
Yeah. Well, but the idea that a pill is going to fix something, maybe it will help you reveal things. Maybe it'll help you deal at the moment, but it's the soul work that everyone needs to do.
It's just been my experience. A pill can take the edge off, but it never solves anything. It's not until you can truly get into your own mind and actually reflect on what the actual causes of these things are before you actually can move forward. And that's been the big animal in my life. And just putting the blinders on for too long and just letting it go for too long was my downfall. I tend to be somebody that tries to give everybody their fair shake, regardless of their background. I try to just meet everybody at face value, and unfortunately, that just doesn't work. And had to learn those lessons the hard way. And now hopefully with this young gentleman over here, we'll be able to another new generation of people that will get through this wall, because it's much more important for these people to be here than not. So our government really needs to step up, because he got the whole TAPS and out like I did. Basically I got one class of TAPS, which I was in.
What's TAPS? For the
TAPS transition something. It's a class to help you transition.
Okay.
From civilian to I think it's like an hour, maybe 2 or something like that. But they go over everything you have to do in order to get all your medical records, your dental records, all your stuff, transitioning to the VA. It gives you all of the information you actually need, but in this super condensed form, which you don't pay attention to because you're in your 20s, and it's only one class, and there's no help after that. Then they give you a piece of paper to go get signatures from all the different areas, like your records, medical, dental, and then you get all these signatures saying that you're okay to get out, and then that's it, you're done. And then they dump you off into the civilian world, and then you just got to figure it out.
Well, somebody points at the brochures in the corner.
Oh yeah. They might give you a couple of handouts.
I'm gonna cut them a little bit of slack where there's a little bit more given to you, but let's be honest, man. Who the hell wants to get out of the military and then be like, all right, I'm on my road to recovery. Let's get those. No, you need to get a job. Chances are you need to get your girl back from somebody. You got to find out where your car's parked. If who took care of it. The parents still live in the same town. I mean,
my dad sold mine.
I ended up in for 20 years because every 4 years when those questions came up, I went, man, I guess I'll stick around because my stuff's here. Yeah. And when I met my wife, it was a question. I made chief at 8.5 years, and
which is amazing, by the way.
Yeah, and but I never made senior chief because of my mouth. So,
well, I'm not surprised.
But I don't know, man. All I'm saying is that after that, it was just I got to keep a roof over my head, and I can't get out. What am I gonna do? And there was stop loss and all this other stuff. And before my wife and I turned around to try to have a plan, I was like, babe, I got to retire. I got to stay in and get this pension and get this health care. And there was no time. It took me 5 years after I retired to even start thinking about these things properly. Yeah. Sorry, I can.
Yeah, and which worse is and then if you don't get tied in with a good set of people right when you get out, it's never going to happen. Because by the time I realized that there was a bunch of stuff I really needed to do, I mean, it really was years after I had gotten out. So the first thing I go down to the the VA, or not the VA, get registered with the VA, and they're like, oh well, you're not rated or anything like that. So yeah, we'll see you, but it's going to cost you money. It's like, okay, well, I got insurance with my company that I work with, so F you guys anyways, right? So you just keep working on and on. Then somebody tells me, hey, just not for nothing, but you probably should be rated for those issues. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really, I'm not going to do that. I did the mission. I did the job. You get this whole oversensitive, like, I did it for my country and I knew what was happening. No, you didn't. You're an idiot. And
Can I share with you? I was rated originally at 40%. And about a year and a half later, I got called in. I had to go up to the VA, and this guy sat me down and he explained to me as soon as I sat down, he said, look, I'm retiring in about 6 months and they don't like me around here because I help people. But I happened to be looking at your thing when it came across my desk, and I perused your record, and you deserve a lot more than 40%. He goes, and we're going to get that for you today. And we went through a fine-tooth comb with my record, and before he justified 90%. And that was a huge help to my family at a time when I was on a second career and it wasn't working out too good. I became a chef when I retired. And guess what? A little stressful. Not as easy as it looked on TV. But if not for people like that, these, I reserve the right to use the word angel, but these folks waiting in the wings that are these 1 out of 100 that are really kicking ass to help people, because the system was just going to give me whatever trickled out. Because like you and like a lot of other people, I was like, man, hearing loss, but I chose to shoot guns and I didn't put my hearing protection on. That was my decision. And my knees are jacked up, but I'm the one that ran on the metal deck instead of the treadmill. And I didn't feel like I was owed that money. I still don't feel like I'm owed anything, and that's stupid because of what we put into this machine. But that's Gen X. That's the way I was raised. I don't believe you, and I don't want to owe anything. So, man,
it changed a lot when my body broke, and like that same, I was always able to provide for my family. And it was starting to get harder and harder and harder. And then, like you, I had that 1 in 100 said, hey, you should go at least file. Worst case scenario, you get 20-30%. It's a car payment, dude. It pays one of your bills. And I'm like, all right. So I put my paperwork in and I got 70% off the bat because apparently I'm nuts. But but it's the point that it's not so much what we're owed, it's the care we should have received to begin with. If everybody there should be an audit process, a legitimate audit process when people get out. And I will be damned if there ain't any person that isn't owed at least 10%. and medical for the rest of their lives. I mean, really, that's the least they could do for what they did to us.
Well, I mean, come on, man. We're still all calculating our own taxes, and if we get the number wrong, it's like the government knows how much you owe them, because if you get it wrong, they're gonna get it. They're gonna know how much you owe them in difference, and so just by deduction, that tells me I didn't need to do all this math and all these different forms and everything else.
Why don't you just send me a damn bill?
It's almost like you set this system up for it to be hard, so you wouldn't have to pay me, and so we have so many things like that. It's just not easy, and it's ridiculous that it's easier to go to war than it is to come home.
Yeah. Sorry, I've had that logo inside of your face this whole time.
Oh, I don't care. Cover up. Hey, man, I like my privacy. Yeah. I'm okay.
Yeah. But
Cover my face with anything you want.
You're absolutely correct with that, and it just, what really keyed with me when you said you found that one doctor. I had the same thing with my TBI. I've been having just fucking pain through my whole body, and it just has gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. Couldn't understand why. Didn't really. I mean, I've had some accidents in the service, some bad things happen, but I didn't know what would cause me to have my whole body just start hurting all the time. Well, so they sent me to a TBI clinic, and I had this in the TBI clinic, just like you just said. I'm about to retire. I'm about to order everything on you. We're gonna literally scan you from the tip of your hair down to your toenails. We're gonna find every scrap of anything wrong with you. And he sure enough did. Come to find out, I broke my neck sometime when I was in the service. No freaking clue, because they said it healed on its own, but when it healed, I guess there's a tendon that runs down your spine that keeps everything together. And that tendon, where it broke, grew like 3 times the size as it's supposed to, and it's pushing against my spinal cord and pushing my spinal cord into my spine. And that's where all of it's coming. And it's also pulling, like my scalp pulls back because of these injuries and the overworking of my neck muscles. So now all of a sudden I figure out in one swoop where my migraines were coming from, where my pain was coming from. And then of course, here comes the military, not service connected. I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man. And it's like they can even tell how old the injury was. And they're like, this injury is approximately 10 to 15 years old. And it's like, well, that puts it right in the middle of my enlistment. So, and but of course the VA doctors will never attest to that. So I had to go out to civilian doctors, have all the same tests run, and pay an arm and a leg to get the same things done, just so that I had a doctor that would literally fill out a big thing, a medical nexus, so that I could actually get it in my record as service connected. And what a pain in the ass it was. It ended up taking me a total of around 12 full years to get it completely done from start to finish. And
that's a sin. That's a sin on behalf of the country. And as a taxpayer, I would much prefer my taxes going to take care of the people who have given their lives, given their time at the least. And that's the most valuable. That's the only thing of value that we really have is time. It's the only thing that's truly finite. So you folks give your time and your bodies and your minds to the defense of our nation. I want my taxes going to you.
I appreciate that, Ben.
And how do we fix that? Like every single doctor almost every single doctor becomes a doctor because they want to help. Nurses become nurses because they want to heal.
And then they just want to pay off their student loans.
But then what happens with the system where you take people in who want to do good and you crush them such that they are now so burnt out that they don't even see the veterans that they're working with as people to help? What is this? It's just
when you go into a VA office to get medical treatment, you're going to get either for doctors wise, it's always going to be somebody that's already retired. Usually, I mean, for the most part, most of them are already retired doctors, and this is their twilight gig. this is just another just a job. They already got their retirement, their pensions, and everything like that, but they are doing this as a retirement gig.
Probably because they want to do good, though.
No, I think it's just because they want a job. Because I can't count how many times. Like, I finally got a good doctor now, but I can't count how many times I go in there and they're just like, they've seen me 10 times, but they're just now reviewing the case again and acting like they just met me, and that drives me up the wall.
It's going to take a lot more people like us who work in advocacy in general, who are willing to, to put their whole effort into this, to start things that frankly shame the system, because this is one system that can be shamed, because all of the people that are going to be interested in it have a stake in it and have a certain amount of pride wrapped up in it. But the idea that a bus doesn't go out each night around the base and hand out some food to the guys that served, in the homeless, we don't even take care of our own. There's empty barracks, empty housing facilities all over the country from bases that closed during BRAC that have never been developed. And the fact is, and pardon me for taking this briefly political, we've all been manipulated in our lives. We've all been sold something that we believe in, but at the end, we're not taking care of each other anymore. We're spending our money on war. We're not spending it on each other. The roads are broken, but we're building them in other countries. I'm with you. I don't need to pick a side to figure out that's the wrong. It's wrong to go and kill other people, and wrong not to take care of your own house.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is we all have to shake that up. We all have to realize that we have to help each other, and not just because we hope someday someone's going to help us. We're in this together, and if we don't do it together, we arrive alone. And who the hell wants that?
I know I don't, but I do know that if we ever had a chance to do some good change in the VA and with the care of the vets, this may be the administration to do it coming up. With a vet as a vice president, it's a sympathetic ear. So
I hope it's able to overcome the things that his boss has said about us in general. I'm not sure why we're able. Someone is supposed to say such vile and disgusting things about our veterans, and yet we're going to support him and think he's going to somehow care. But pardon me.
I was on board with JD Vance. He seems to be he's my glimmering hope that hopefully that maybe something will be done with the VA. But
I like the color of the fur of the tiger. I don't want to ride the thing.
Yeah, I can understand that. So we are getting past the hour now. I don't want to keep everybody, but I do want to go through stuff, and we'll start with PJ. PJ, I know you got a big project you just finished. You just wrote your own book. Why don't you give yourself a plug for that? You look at him; he's ready.
I found one of the things I like to do is write, and it took me a while to figure out that I actually wanted to write a book. And my first book is good, but it could be a hell of a lot better. And my second book will be a hell of a lot better. But both my first book and the second one that I'm in the middle of writing, they deal with all these mental health issues. And it's almost as much a part of the book as the actual story of it is. And it's the best way I know personally how to help. I took copies of my first book and handed them out at the VA. And I've had guys come up and say, that's how I feel. Like, that's the intention. Now, do what the character did and go get help. Because that's the point of the story.
Yeah.
And it's one of the ways I know of to help and provide a different method of communicating to people.
Are you doing any other projects? You got any other things going on?
No.
All right. Well, that's good enough. Sean, I know you're constantly in like 10 different things at a time. So what are you doing right now? And not you didn't have to be veteran related or anything like that. What's keeping your attention right now? What project is making you the happiest that you're working on?
Well, my family inside, and finally having us in a place where my wife and I are really doing exactly what we'd all hoped our parents had done for us. Not exactly, no one's perfect. But beyond that, I'm the global platform and project advisor for a company called Investigate the Unknown. We're developing the Nanu app, which we intend to, we're in beta right now. We'll be putting it out very soon. We have a host of media that will be coming with it, a podcast and some educational TikToks and things like that to help people that have been involved in the paranormal and UAP find common ground, find people like them, compare their stories, contrast them, assist in academia, and basically be part of what we've all watched for the last 5 years, to get everybody on the ground and working together. Because just like with this subject, it doesn't appear that the government's going to solve any problems. Our vote's not going to change things overnight as far as disclosure goes. So it's important that we look out for each other and make sure that when it comes down to it, maybe we don't need you.
Yeah, and that's you nailed it right on the head. That's actually why we started UAPX, because it's like if they're not going to give us the information, we got to go find it.
We're more on the harm reduction side than the science side, but we'll have plenty of science involved as well.
Well, we need everybody on all the different fronts. I mean, it really, when it comes down to it, whether it's nuts and bolts or whether it's just the humanity side of things, we need people everywhere. And like yourself, because of the Nimitz Encounter event that we were all a part of, it kind of made a catalyst, and there will always be a bond between all of us. But it's we, no matter what kind of projects we're all doing, we seem to all be trying to do the same thing, trying to figure everything out. Try to make sense of the things that we've experienced, and that goes with PTSD, that goes with paranormal, that goes with UAP. We're all just trying to make sense of this world, and be aware. Keep an eye on your friends. Keep an eye on your family. Keep an eye on your vets. Constantly talk to them, and don't be scared to ask them if they're suicidal. By the way, that's something that everybody seems to be. They like to beat around the bush. They try to ask you questions to see if you're suicidal, but reality, when it comes down to it, just come out and ask them. Because 9 times out of 10, the bluntness is going to actually work a lot better than anything else. And you can't use kid gloves with somebody that might kill themselves, because even if they attempt, even if the attempt is just because they're yelling for help, that attempt could succeed. And so it's very important for you to be not worry about hurting somebody's feelings if you're wrong, because if you're wrong, they're still here and you can make up. If you're not wrong, they won't be here, and they'll never be able to make up with them. So be blunt, be honest, and most of all, never give up, especially if it's somebody that's important to you. And remember, always ask a vet for help, especially if they're struggling. The more they're struggling, the more you need to ask them for help. And then once you can get into their confidences, then you can go and get them help, even if they're you got to drag them kicking and screaming, because if you mean something to them, they will listen, even if it is stubbornly. So I know I had to, because I told Jason, I don't need that shit. I'm fine. No, I wasn't. Going through the program made me realize I was not fine. So I wish everybody the best, and happy Veterans Day to all my brothers and sisters out there. And just know, if you're struggling, find somebody that loves you. They will help. And believe me, there is help out there. Through the VA, we talked a lot of crap about the VA, but when it comes down to it, if you've got nowhere else, at least they've got the veteran crisis lines. If you tell them you're suicidal, they will help, no matter what. That's the one thing I will give them for. When you tell them you need help with suicide, they're on top of that, and they do have crisis centers and crisis lines and people that can help you. There is organizations like Till Valhalla, Wounded Warrior. I mean, there's a ton of resources out there. You just got to get on Google. Google is your friend. Go find the help. Doesn't matter how. Anything else you want to say, Sean?
No, it was a pleasure to be here.
I appreciate you coming on.
Take a deep breath and everybody remind yourself that you have just as much value as the other 8 billion people here, and it's going to be okay. Let them do that thing while you do your thing.
Yeah. And if nobody's told you today, and I'm talking directly to you and whoever you is, the world is better for you to be in it. Mm-hmm. Somebody wants you here. I want you here.
Somebody out there is dying for your love and your time. Trust me.
Yep.
Somebody would really love to have a minute of your time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, PJ, you got anything else you want to say?
Nope. Just happy Veterans to everybody else, and I was glad I could be here.
All right, to my able-bodied co-host, you have any final words?
No, happy Veterans Day. Thank you all for your service. And definitely you're important. And there's always a brighter day, no matter how dark it gets, no matter how hopeless you feel. Hopelessness feels insurmountable when you're in the pits, but that pit is the potential, the negative potential. You can reach heights that are only possible because of how low you felt. So just know that there is hope always.
Yeah. So I thank again everybody that's come on with me tonight. You guys are, amazing. And I thank you for coming on and sharing your insights and showing everybody the different faces of all of the mental illness of the military. And just know everybody's in good company. God bless everybody. Farewell. Have a good night.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.